just some thoughts on what's happened to Tommy. And Tommy, I think to a great extent for all patriots, certainly for all patriots, and possibly for the whole country, is to some extent the canary in the mine. You know the story. The canaries used to be put in the mine with the miners. If the canary keeled over, it was time for the miners to get out of Dodge and get up top before they were overcome, or there was a gas explosion. That was back in the days when men were men and canaries were nervous. But the reality is that that's very much the role that Tommy's played for years. He's always been the one that's taken the heat. He's always been the one that, he was told many years ago by an Anglican vicar when he was in prison that he was the sacrificial lamb for the United Kingdom, and that has proved to be the case. Now, hopefully, and I say hopefully, it looks like the incident in St Pancras Station, that there's evidence there proving that Tommy did not commit GBH. That's what it sounds like from what he's saying when he's been talking on his videos. And my goodness, I hope we know he didn't, but the reality is the deep state and everybody that hates him and hates us, because Tommy is very much, as well as a human being and a person, he's very much a symbolic figure, symbolic of British resistance against the tyranny of Islam, the tyranny of the communists, and the tyranny of the globalists. And I'm not using the word Islamism anymore. I'm going to use the word Islam, because the reality is the doctrines and the ideas that are causing all sorts of problems right the way throughout the world, and now very, very specifically in the UK, come from the Quran, the Hadith, the biography of Muhammad, Sharia jurisprudence or Islamic jurisprudence, and Sharia law. So the reality is that we face a massive crisis in this country, and it's been made worse all the time by our governments, by the Uni Party. The GBH charge could have carried a 16-year to life sentence. Section 18, GBH with intent. That's what they arrested him for. That is absolutely ridiculous. How could Tommy have had intent to commit GBH? He'd never met the man. The man was haranguing him. Tommy was backing off. Tommy was walking away. How could they even think of arresting Tommy and trying to charge him with that offence? But of course, we know a lot of this is opportunism by politically motivated police officers. I've just seen some footage from Epping, I think it was, that was shot by Wesley. And this police officer is saying, if you see the fascists, this isn't the constable. He's got red pips on his shoulder, inspector or above, and he's talking about the fascists, i.e. peaceful protesters outside a hotel, women of all ages, kids, family men, businessmen from Essex. But according to this copper, they're fascists. That's what we're up against. And I'm getting a bit bored with this, oh, most police officers are all right. I'm not sure that's true anymore, to be brutally honest with you. They're getting paid. Those coppers that were obviously trying to stick it on Tommy, they're getting paid to do that. They know that Tommy did not go into St Pancras Station with any intent of doing anything other than getting his train home. They know that. And yet they try to charge him under Section 18. Section 18 GBH intent. The other thing is, let's put the GBH nonsense to one side. I think it's nonsense. It's obviously self-defense, but let's put all that to one side and let's talk about the other issue and the two charges, the two other charges that they've hit him with under the new internet harms legislation. And I want us to think about this. I've been warning people about the internet harms legislation, I think, for 4 years, maybe more. I remember speaking to a guy that was very involved in Parliament. I spoke to him about it. He didn't really know what was going on with it. This is a guy working in Parliament. Didn't have a clue about it. Looked at me blankly. Anyway, and that was about 4 years ago. That was under Boris Johnson's watch. As far as I know, Nadine Dorries, and as far as I know, she had help from the delightful Nick Lowles. You know, that snivelling little creep that when someone confronts him on the street just goes quiet and and blushes, that guy. And again, I'm not talking about people violently for confronting him. I'm talking about people who confront him peacefully. He was involved in the framing of that legislation. They were Help Not Hate were advisors on the internet harms legislation, and they wanted to make it even more draconian than it is. But as Tommy has just found out today, it's extreme. And I think we're all of us, it means we're all of us an open goal for the Stasi. And the police officers that charged Tommy with those charges, if I was them, I would not be able to go home and look my wife and kids in the face. I would not be able to sleep in my bed at night if I was those police officers, knowing that they are deliberately using that legislation to commit more lawfare against Tommy. This law is an abomination. It is the death of free speech. What was he charged with? Getting an FUCK Hamas poster on his Twitter feed. That's what it said. F Hamas, F Islam. If you want to protest for them, go to an Islamic country, do it. Something along those lines, right? It was roughly what it said. The other one is even more ridiculous. The other tweet that he has been charged with, I mean, this blows my mind. The other tweet he's been charged with relates to school children in a school not being white. This was an East End school. It says where the Crays were, where Jack the Ripper was, Whitechapel, and the fact that there was no English kids in that school. Now, as an Englishman, right? I'm not from London, so I'm not a Londoner, but I am an Englishman. And as an Englishman, I find that extremely worrying that there are no white kids in a school in the East End, which is the heart of working class England, or the heart of working class London for sure. And there's no white kids there. I find that that makes me very alarmed and distressed. Not because I'm alarmed and distressed about the post that Tommy made, but I'm alarmed and distressed about the facts. So we are facing a monstrous regime in Starmer. I despise him. Keir Starmer, I despise you. I hate everything you stand for. I think you're a dangerous, tyrannical leader, and the sooner you're politically deposed in a free and fair election by a massive majority, the better. And I would, look, that's another story. The politics is another story. I keep going about politics. Forget about that for a while. So this internet harms legislation, this gives every single human being in the UK a reason to go to London and support Tommy's protest on the 13th of September. Whatever political background you're from, you should be at that demonstration saying, we want freedom of speech and we want our freedom of speech protected. Because freedom of speech is dying under this government. It is absolutely dying under this government. And we need to stand up. We need to stand up for freedom of speech. The first time we did a freedom demonstration was in 2018. And all the lefties were having a meltdown. What do the far right know about freedom? Well, we know a lot about freedom. Not that we're far right, but we know that you scumbags are trying to take it off us. That's what we know. The left hate freedom. The left hate liberty. The left say the loving left is really the hating left. Hate without hope, that vile organisation seems to be the heart of everything. So I don't know what we do about this, because we've all done that. If someone wants to go through my social media and pick up everything I've said that might offend someone from a certain demographic, then there's going to be a lot of knocks on my door. So it's just ridiculous. It's an absolutely ridiculous situation. Getting back to the assault side of things, and this is something I think every single, again, patriots and YouTube and people that have got that are fairly prominent now. And I always used to laugh at this. I genuinely used to laugh at this, because I thought, I'm a big lad, I can look after myself. If anyone comes up and gives me any aggro, I don't need anyone with me. And to be fair, I've never had anyone come up and harass me like Tommy's had. But I'm wondering, do all prominent patriots in the UK need to be going around, not necessarily with security, but with a couple of lads with them that can look after themselves? I think that's becoming a more likely scenario, and especially as things start to unravel. I'm going to do a video in a few days about when I get the time to do it, a possible scenario of how society could unravel in the UK. I'm going to base it on factual events that have happened in the past, but it's going to be entirely fictional. So I'm going to base it on stuff that happened maybe in Northern Ireland, stuff that's happened in England, and I'll try and get that done in the next few days, because it's going to be quite difficult to get all those thoughts together. But anyway, is now the time when we're going to have to go around in twos and threes? You know, like, I've never done that ever in my life. I've gone everywhere, on my own. But do we all have to start doing that? And I said to Tommy, I sent Tommy a message last week when he was away. And I said, look, you need security. I had lads getting in touch with me saying, Richard, we'll do security for you. We'll do security for Tommy, which is great. And they're good lads. But it just shows you the sort of scenarios that we're looking at now, and the danger that our country's in. So that's the thoughts on what's happened with Tommy. Like I say, Tommy is very much the canary in the mine. And these are very, very worrying times. See you all soon.